And ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned in to the Status Network, the live TV channel. This is the Conversation Corner with your host, the author, Andrew Snorton. And as we do every second and fourth Wednesday about this time, let's have a conversation with some great people doing some great things across the board in entertainment, business, community, and more. And before we get to them, we're going to do our station announcement as well as a couple announcements how to stay connected with yours truly. But real quickly, with today being Veterans Day, we want to send a special shout out and a special thank you to all of our folks who are serving in the armed services, armed forces, the reserves, who are retired military. We thank you for your service. Continued well wishes to you, your families, friends, loved ones, and more, as we really do appreciate the work that you do. Now, in regards to the network, we appreciate you taking time to tune into tonight's show. The best ways to enjoy tonight's show are to go to statusnetwork.net, and when the big old box pops up, go ahead and click on Conversation Corner, and that way you can view it and get updates, catch up on previous shows, and more. For those of you that have space on your smart devices, make sure to go ahead and download the Status Network app, click on Channels, click on Live TV, that's LYVE Live TV, to go ahead and enjoy the show. Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and other social media platforms. Make sure to add Status Network as well as Live TV. For those of you that have Roku and Amazon Fire Stick, make sure to tune in to Status Network and follow me on Facebook at the page Author Andrew Snorton, where you can watch and share accordingly. And now to our quick announcements. For those of you out there that are doing work in film, documentaries, things along those lines, make sure to connect with us here at the Status Network. As you see at the information at the bottom of your screen, we are actively looking for some great content. You'll get exposure on Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, YouTube, and the other Status Network platforms, so make sure to go ahead and get your film seen. And with yours truly, as you know, I am an author, so in writing, you can check out all of my books, which are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and with the current release of Nothing Minor, it is also available on ebook on Apple. And then, of course, the audiobook series, The Author's Mixtape, you may download it on one of any of your favorite platforms like Tidal, Spotify, things along those lines, Amazon, Apple Music, etc. So make sure to add to not only your reading library, but your listening library to go ahead and add to your collection. And I want to see if there is anything else that we need to cover during this first part before we get into things. Oh, yes. October and November, if we can get that up right quick. October and November interviews. That's right. I'm so thankful for the following entities: Hard in the Paint Sports, WSNC 90.5 FM, Triad and Focus, The Live Exchange, Good News with Tawanda Black, Chicks into Sports, the Tell Me Mo podcast. Make sure to check out these and other interviews. And again, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, make sure to add and connect with me today. And that takes care of our station as well as our brief announcements. And now we're getting into our first guest for the evening. It is always great to connect with people doing great things across the board, creative things across the board. So we are excited to have the creative team behind the series Weekend Coffee Club, Weekend Coffee Go. And I know my New Jersey isms are coming out, so I'm not saying it correctly. But we've got right here, it's great to have you on. Please introduce yourself to our guests and where you're based out of.
My name is Janelle. My podcast is called Weekend Coffee Girl. I am based out of Dallas, Texas. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. It is so exciting to have you on. It's always great when we get to connect with people doing some great things. Before getting into your podcast series, walk through with our viewers a little bit, just a point of reference. What are some of the, I'll say, creative talents, interests, however you want to put it, that kind of positioned you to take this step?
The pandemic, actually. I realized that we were in a standstill, and I didn't know how long things were going to go on. So I just started to reassess my life and think about some of the things that I enjoyed doing, but I was not making the time to do. So writing and creating a podcast is how this whole thing got started.
Wow. So again, as other guests have talked about, sometimes during this moment of, I'll say, chaos and disruption, creativity comes out. So start off with the name, because I apologize for messing up. I was reading it, but walk through a little bit the name. How did you come up with the name of your series?
So, with the pictures that you shared, I love to have coffee on the weekend and I love to have boozy coffee. So, I just kind of sit around Saturday morning after my workouts and I indulge in a little bourbon, a little cognac, sometimes brandy, sometimes a little whiskey, and my coffee. So it just became a weekend coffee thing. And the word girl, it's kind of like an acorn. So, when we get comfortable and we're having a good time, our language is a little more relaxed and casual. So the word is actually girl, but when we get into that moment, it's guh. No matter where you're from, even in your New Jersey accent, that's how it all came about. Just me taking the time on the weekends, enjoying a boozy coffee, listening to some great jazz, listening to some great reggae, and just taking the time to create a little bit.
And I'm telling you what, I'm taking mental notes here. So note to self with coffee. So, bourbon, this 21 and older, ladies and gentlemen, bourbon and a couple other things. And it almost sounds like a little bit of, like you said, that relaxed time or that brunch time or things along those lines.
Absolutely. I mean, we haven't been going to brunch lately. So I just kind of make my own brunch. And during that time, I am chatting with my friends. So the podcast came about as a way to stay connected with good topics. I mean, we all love great conversations over a nice glass of wine or stiff pour. And I'm kind of recreating that through the podcast.
And I tell you what, and it comes back to what was said before in regards to using this time to kind of tap into different talents, discover different things, and like you said before, being creative and staying connected. So walk through with our viewers some of the topics that you've been able to cover, and how do you feel those topics that you've covered are allowing you to not only stay connected with your colleagues, but even continue to reach other people?
So the topics for the podcast thus far are you all right without homecoming? I have a lot of friends who are HBCU graduates, and they were not all right without homecoming. Now, you went to a very prestigious school, so did I, but homecoming, it means something different in different parts of the world. So my HBCU friends were not okay without homecoming, and they came on the podcast and shared some amazing stories. I am on the verge of becoming an empty nester, and after I did a little research, there wasn't much data about women of color or men of color as empty nesters. So I reached out to some friends who are empty nesting parents and got some tips and clues from them, and they shared some wonderful stories as well. Speaking about some of the other topics, they're a little adult in nature, just sex positive tools and having good conversations about, adult time. And now I am on my next topic, which is about parents on their parental journey, just a group of parents getting together to chat about some of the things that they've encountered personally as a parent. And the thing that they all have in common is that they have at least two children who are already out of the house, and they have a third or a fourth that are on the verge of leaving the house. So I wanted to kind of tap into a particular market and have a very unique conversation.
I tell you what, and I'm glad that you shared, the wide range of topics. I mean, granted, there's grown folks that watch, and I know there's some almost grown folks, but I think, starting off with the homecoming piece, and I tell you what, homecomings, whether through the lens of HBCU and otherwise, it's an important time, and I think the key thing is connecting and reconnecting and building those relationships or renewing those bonds, things along those lines. And I know from having experienced on both ends and whatnot, homecoming is a special time. And so while we understand during the now normal we're operating differently, what were some of the takeaways? Obviously, people not liking that you couldn't partake, but what were some of the other takeaways that you were able to gather from that particular talk regarding the homecoming series?
One thing all of my guests said, and I interviewed 5 HBCU graduates of different age groups and different eras, They all enjoyed having an environment in which they could just be free. They didn't have to explain any of the colloquialisms or slang. They didn't have to feel like they were in their professional workplace. They didn't have to use professional language. They enjoyed the foods that made them feel good about the times that they were in college, and they enjoyed seeing everyone. So that was a common thread through all of my guests, just having that time to just relax. And it also feels like a family reunion, but a different kind of family reunion. There are no kids and there are no elders. So everyone is kind of in your own age group and you can kind of do the things that you want to do. And everyone said that homecoming simply is not long enough, but it's enough, if that even makes sense.
Uh, it does. I know, just kind of thinking back to my experience, it's kind of like I'm there a little bit early and I head out a little bit later. So there's some things, adult things, of course, that that bag or that certain color cup or what have you. But no, I'm glad that you shared that because again, like you said, homecoming is such a special time for a number of people. And again, while people understand, there are folks that are kind of bummed out. I want to pivot to one of the other topics that you mentioned about empty nester. And as you said before, you're on the verge of it. There are others that are on the verge of it. What were some threads that came out of that particular conversation?
So, with those conversations, a lot of the parents, and I've interviewed 3 parents and I've posted 2 episodes, they all felt a sense of almost like a sense of relief. And then it hit them that their children are gone, their children are adults, they're on their own. The kids are on their own, but the parents are also on their own. I interviewed an empty nest father. He was so unique. His experiences were very interesting because he was a bachelor and he started dating again. And he hadn't dated in quite some time. And he made a couple of fumbles in the very beginning of his empty nest. And as he got further along in the journey, he and his son kind of bonded as men. And now his son is getting ready to graduate from college. His son plays D1 football. So they had a unique relationship anyway. But it was interesting because he said, no one ever asked me how I feel as a Black father. So he was great. We taped for about 2 hours and I cut it down to about 45 minutes, but he was absolutely phenomenal. And he said, thank you for just asking me how I feel and what I think.
That is amazing. And you make a good point because these topics that you've hit, you're helping not only like discover and rediscover, but in like especially what you just shared, you're helping someone find their voice. And dating, look, folks can be actively dating and still fumble. So I hope to that particular individual, don't feel so bad because there's folks that are actively dating and they're actively fumbling like stone hands. So it's not just him. But you make an interesting point because you're so focused on family, and deservedly so, that now that you've got this space, it's almost like, what do I do with this extra time? Like you're kind of alluding to, you're not running to practice, you're not running to rehearsal, you're not picking up someone from their job or anything along those lines. So, on one hand, like you're alluding to, you're breaking from a routine, but now it's like you've got to find something else to do and you have to rediscover yourself. Do you think about like on that empty nest piece, was rediscovery one of the themes that you felt was coming out?
Yes, it was. It was definitely a theme of all the episodes and everyone that I talked to because they had spent so much time just focused on parenting and family and work and providing. And they just kind of forgot who they were. And I kind of feel the same way. But the good thing about this topic is that now I have mentors that can help me through the process. Everyone that I interviewed said they didn't have anyone that talked to them about it. So it was a very different feel, but the rediscovery is important. It is definitely a part of it. The sadness, the anxiety, part of it. But then you have to trust that you've instilled great values in them, great work ethic and discipline, and they have to go on and live that life.
Wow. And I tell you what, it's great. And it taps into what you said at the onset. During this now normal, it's allowed you to tap in to some creative pieces. And with what you're doing with your podcast, you're bringing up some great topics. You're getting some rich information. And again, like you said, the biggest thing is, and we've said this before, you're helping people find their voice. And to a degree, would you say you're also helping rediscover part of
I
your
am.
voice?
I
Walk through,
am.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Please walk through that feeling that you're getting. Is like, wow, they're hitting on things that are helping me as
Right.
much as I'm hoping to help them.
So when I realized that I was on the verge of becoming an empty nest, I was making a reservation for a wedding in Mexico, and it's in 2022. And I said, I'm not gonna have a kid in the house. She'll be a freshman and I went into a full-on anxiety attack. The sweating, the heart palpitations, I was dizzy, I was nauseous. Like I was just a mess because I realized that I am going to be alone. My child will be in school. I don't have any other children. At this time, I don't have a mate. So it's the dog and I. So it just hit me like a ton of bricks. So I'm calling people, but I'm now in this creative writing space and I'm writing notes and I'm going back and I'm like, this might be a great topic. I can get some mentorship and I don't have to put all my business on Front Street that I had an anxiety attack and I can get some help. So it has been really, really good for me. My daughter and I have talked about it several times and she says, Mom, I just want you to be happy. I'm going to be okay. You've done a great job.
Wow, I tell you what, and I appreciate you opening up with your experience because obviously your experience can help somebody else. And I think, like you said before, the reassurance that the work that you've put in, it really is taking root. So definitely kudos. I mean, I don't have a hat on, but I'm gonna tip my imaginary hat
Thank you.
and definitely keep up the good work. Let me ask you this and it's kind of hard to predict the future, but based on what you've done right now, what do you kind of see? I don't want to necessarily say the direction, but what are some other topics that you think you may end up approaching, or have people given you feedback? Hey, could you look into this or talk about this?
So I have gotten a lot of feedback about the episode about a black girl's sex positive tape. And the feedback that I got was that it was powerful, it was educational, it was not raunchy or nasty or anything that was, made anybody feel uncomfortable. Truly, we talked about being open and understanding what your needs are. So I'm getting a lot of feedback to have more conversations about sex positive tools. I'm getting more feedback about the empty nester. I'm also getting more feedback about HBCUs and homecoming. Now, my friends that did not go to HBCUs, they want to talk about homecoming. And I think that would be a good conversation to have because homecoming, especially at my alma maters, it's about networking. So this would be a good topic to kind of open up and share why networking is so important, especially right now.
Definitely, definitely. If people haven't heard the term networking before, I think for darn sure you're definitely hearing about it now. Pivoting slightly a little bit, and I want to get your feedback. And as I know, we have some ties, for lack of a better term. And this might be a possible topic, but describe to our viewers when the news came out about your soror.
Mhm.
What would you say was the initial response when, hearing that, hey, this is another hurdle that's been cleared, another barrier that's been broken, and then, of course, having that sorority tie. So, walk through with our viewers just a little bit about your take thus far.
So my take when I heard the news, I just stood dead in my tracks because I was actually attending a birthday drive-by party and we were all lining up to get ready. And I said, how wonderful of a feeling is it that in my lifetime, I've seen a Black president and now a female vice president who just happens to be a member of my sorority. Like it just brought me to tears. And of course, my Lakers won this year, my Dodgers won, so I hit the trifecta this year. So I just stopped dead in my tracks and I just jotted down a few notes. I looked around, my sorority sisters were in tears. You know, the phone is ringing, everyone is excited. I said, capture this historical moment, write down how you are feeling because you may have to come back to this later and kind of add on to it. And as we get older, it's good to share some of your feelings and some of these things with your family instead of relying on the media to do everything. Remember back in the day, people used to tell stories. So sitting down and sharing how you felt in that moment with friends, with your colleagues, with your children, it feels good. So just enjoy it. But I was just happy. I mean, I've seen a black president and now a woman vice president in my lifetime. That's a great feeling. My cousin and I were talking, and she says, well, my mom didn't live long enough to see Mississippi change its flag. That's a powerful statement.
Very, very. And I think, like you said, just really understanding the magnitude of the moment, finding a sense of, joy, euphoria. And not only that, it's like using that energy into thinking, there, quote, aren't any limits. The only limits to varying degrees are the limits either you put on yourself or you let other people put on you. And in talking about how you described your experience with Senator Harris, now Vice President-elect Harris, and even just in this entire time, I hope if people don't take away anything, it's that there's a creative talent and gift
Absolutely.
that is probably waiting to come out. And during this time of, as one of my previous guests said, of chaos, creativity can still come out from it. So I definitely commend you for tapping into your creative talents, your professional talents, like all that and then some, basically. So as we get ready to wind down your segment, I would like for you to remind our viewers again the name of the podcast series, the best ways to catch up on your episodes, and what are ways that people can continue to stay connected and engage with the work that you're doing through the podcast series.
So my podcast is called Weekend Coffee Girl, and that's GUH. You can find it on anchor.fm and all of the major platforms, Spotify, Apple. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram of the same name. You can catch all the episodes there. I do post when the episodes will be available. I always post a small trailer of the episodes just to kind of give you a little tidbit. Instagram, Twitter, and Anchor FM is the best way to reach me.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, Janelle, how you manage all these moving parts is beyond me. You make it look so flawless and smooth as silk. So I thank you for taking and making the time to be with us today, and hopefully viewers will take time to make sure to check out your work and continue to keep you encouraged and just keep moving forward with the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you once again for being on. So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to go ahead and bring on our next guest. So stay tuned to the Conversation Corner.
Make sure to pick up a copy of the Amazon #1 bestseller by author, speaker, and life coach Tori Vogt. You Got This is a great resource that can help equip, enlighten, and empower those and provide a reminder that all that you truly need is truly inside of you. Make sure to connect with her at her social media today and add this to your library. All About the Authors is the Authors Roundtable that I co-host with celebrity source Tyra Satai. We air every second and fourth Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the information provided. Make sure to catch our November 9th edition with Tori Vogt and Dr. Tiffany Flowers, and mark your calendars for November 23rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next edition. The Loganville Conyers chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is hosting a health-focused roundtable on November 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the information provided. Dr. Lisa Smith and our fraternal brother Jerry Pope will be our speakers as a reminder that there is no need to fight alone. Make sure to mark your calendars for November 14th and 15th for the I Have to Laugh event. Proceeds will be donated to help support those affected by COVID-19, so check the information provided and let's help them make it happen.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the Conversation Corner with your host, the author Andrew Snorton. We had a great opening interview, and we're just going to make sure to continue to build upon this. Our next guest, especially for those in Metro Atlanta, are familiar with his work. He has done a more than solid job with event hosting, DJing, MCing, expanding on his business reach, and we're so excited to have him on tonight's show. So we are glad to welcome the Rick Joyner Experience. Rick, how you doing this evening, good sir?
Andrew, man, I am doing incredibly well. I am incredibly blessed, and thank you so much for having me on, man.
Well, I tell you what, I want to say, before we got on air, thank you so much for calling me and keeping me in the loop. I'm glad you got to where you need to go safe and sound. Before we talk about your moving parts, and including the newest moving part, please let our viewers know where you're originally based out of, where you're originally from, where you're based out of, and just a couple of the moving parts that fall under the umbrella for the Rick Joyner Experience.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. At the tender age of 17, I think I walked into a little spot in the neighborhood where the DJ was setting up about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, hey, I want to do that. He said, well, get up there and do it. And that's how the story all started. And I worked in a lot of hole-in-the-wall type blues and R&B clubs initially, and then worked my way up through the club circuit in Memphis to become one of the top club jocks there in the city. And then all of a sudden, the club closed one night, and I'm like, well, there's no job security there. So I looked into broadcasting school options and found a school there that had a vocational course teaching broadcasting. And I went in the evenings and took the class, did pretty well, then came out and went into radio, starting in Memphis, Tennessee. And I've been blessed to work a lot of different cities as music director, program director, lots of different on-air shifts in Jackson, Tennessee, Nashville, St. Louis, and then ultimately here in Atlanta, where I've been for the last 21 years. Not a whole lot of radio that I've done in Atlanta, even though I did some syndicated work from Atlanta that broadcast into about 50 cities around the country. So it's been a nice ride, 40 years in radio and still going strong with my live streaming show now.
I was about to say 40 years, you gotta be kidding. Now, I know we normally use black don't crack when it comes to women, but I'm just saying, we're just saying you are aging like a fine libation. So you are not showing any of your 40 years. And I'm so thankful that you walked through your experience. This reminds me of when I had Sam Crenshaw on.
Oh, wow.
And like you said, I'm glad you talked about how you dedicated yourself to developing your craft and worked in different markets and worked in different audiences. And
right.
One thing I can say, and I've seen you work, up close and personal, part of the reason why you have the ability to connect with so many people, you've worked in so many different spaces and places. So you've got right now, like you said, you're still doing, like you said, your series. I know you're still, even in the now normal, you're still doing work with hosting events, DJing, things along those lines. What would you say has been one of the bigger challenges during the now normal?
Oh, great question. Well, from an entertainment professional perspective, meaning doing live events, one of the greatest challenges was when all live events stopped. Thank you for the compliment earlier about my 40 plus years, but I don't mind telling anybody, man, I am blessed to have turned 60 years old this past Saturday. And it's a huge milestone, and I thank God for the journey. I thank him for keeping me thus far. And being in active entertainment where I'm hosting events, emceeing, DJing, lots of parties. I was supposed to be in Cabo right now, as a matter of fact, for the Life Lux Jazz Festival, which I did do last November. But that, of course, was postponed like so many other events. COVID did a number on the entertainment industry for sure, but it's forced a lot of people to look and think outside of the box and to adjust, if you will, based on the new normal. So you've got a lot of virtual concerts that are out there now. You've got DJs that are doing virtual parties and those kinds of things. I did a few of those, but it wasn't my big thing to do, but I have made some adjustments as well. You know, we were all kind of forced to look at COVID and figure out how can I still operate and prosper even in this new normal situation.
And you made valid points, and that's something that a number of our guests have talked about, where during the now normal, and I'll say this, I like using the term now normal. I borrowed that term from Dean Walton. He's the Dean of the School of Divinity at Wake Forest University. Yeah. And because based on how things are going on right now, we have to operate a certain way. And I'm just saying, I think just doing that seed planting also helps tap into your creativity. And you made a very good point, just like our previous guests and other guests. Part of this time of disruption has really forced people to pause, dig a little deeper, and tap into some things that either A, they didn't know they had, right, B, they had and they were putting on hold. Right. So, or for lack of a term, just blowing stuff up. I mean, figuratively, I'm not telling anyone to blow anything up. Figuratively, to just basically and start back over and just start a new piece. Yeah. And I want to pivot into one of the things because, like you said, you've been able to last for this long because of your dedication to your craft and also being creative and being a step ahead. So walk through with our viewers one of the new pieces that is part of that umbrella of the Rick Joyner experience.
Well, one of the things that I noticed when COVID first took over the headlines was that there was a lot of talk about certain things. For example, there was a lot of talk about wearing a mask, which I think is extremely important. There was a lot of talk about social distancing, which again, I think is extremely important. Another thing that was all over the media was quarantining yourself if you feel you've been exposed. All of these things were the prevalent items, if you will, in the news. But the one thing I was not hearing about was maybe the importance of building up your immune system. I have always been a huge proponent of natural herbs and naturopathic healing, the natural versus the pharmaceuticals. And at 60, I am blessed. I'm not on any medication whatsoever. I take some vitamins and some supplements. But what happened was a buddy of mine caught COVID-19. He took himself to the emergency room. They verified that he was positive, but he wasn't bad enough for them to keep him. And then they sent him back home. And he told me the next day he took something called sea moss gel. And when he took it, he said that he almost immediately started feeling better. He could feel it improving the condition of his respiratory system almost immediately. And that caught my attention. I was like, okay, what is this sea moss gel? So I started doing some homework, doing some research, and then an herb shop where I get my own personal herbs and vitamins and supplements and stuff. I was in there one day to buy something, and he actually had some sea moss gel in the refrigerator. And I was like, hey, I need to try this. So I got a jar that was a blend actually of sea moss and bladderwrack. And just a real quick education for you. Sea moss and bladderwrack are both sea vegetables. They are food that grows in the sea. You have stepped on seaweed and sea moss and bladderwrack probably more times than you could ever know just walking up and down the beach and never paid any attention to what it was. I know I have. But once I saw this blend of bladderwrack and sea moss, I bought a small jar. And I started taking 2 tablespoons a day. And Andrew, I was so shocked because after 5 days of taking it, my fingernails started growing fast and long. My energy level shot up. My libido shot up. I mean, everything shot up. And I was like, oh my God, what in the world have I stumbled across? So I kept doing research and studying to find out more information about this superfood called sea moss. So once I kept taking it, and it just kept doing wonderful things for my energy. So I knew it was something that I wanted to go into business because I'm always looking for some way, some kind of way, somehow to be a blessing and to be a positive influence on the lives of other people. And I think sea moss gel is a great way to do it. So I went into the sea moss gel business and haven't looked back yet.
Wow. And it ties in with the whole theme of discovery. So as you're helping, inform and educate people, you talked about some of the benefits that you've experienced from from taking it on a regular basis. Could you walk through with our viewers, what are some other, and I know everybody's body is different, but in general, what, based on your research, and your knowledge base, what are some other benefits to taking sea moss?
Well, let me before I go into those benefits, I want to just share this bit of information to kind of put everything into context for people. Our human bodies consist of 102 minerals. And of those 102 minerals, how many of those do you really think we're getting into our bodies with our daily diets? Not many. Okay, we're not getting many of those minerals into our bodies with our daily diet, especially when you're eating a lot of processed foods and those kinds of things. So of the 102 minerals that are in our bodies, there are 92 of those minerals in sea moss gel. 92 of 102 are in this jar. So just imagine for a second, if you will, what could possibly happen when you start feeding your body what it's naturally made of, what it naturally craves. It has a tendency to stabilize and balance out so many systems within the body. Not only did I notice my energy going up and my libido and other things, but I also noticed that I'm a little bit sharper mentally. I was like, whoa, I'm thinking like I did when I was in my 20s. And it's really, really super, super incredible. So one of the other benefits is that it helps with weight loss. One of my buddies has been taking it. He lost 15 pounds in a month on accident, not on purpose. Okay. And he accredited that strictly to the sea moss gel. I have clients telling me how they are more regular. It will almost immediately start cleansing the body. It will clean you out. It's not like a laxative or anything like that. I'm just saying it helps to unclog the body, the intestinal tract and those kinds of things. It's great for your thyroid. Okay. It's great for inflammation. It's anti-inflammatory. It has been described as anti-cancerous. It has so many benefits to the body simply because it's 92 minerals that the body needs every day. So just truly, truly incredible, man.
Wow. And I tell you what, and I'm so glad you're taking the time to walk through, because again, you've taken time, just like you've shown in anything else. You're dedicated to your craft. You're doing the research. You're making sure to continue to learn more and find more. When you talk with your clients, what, in addition to what you shared before with some people experiencing weight loss and just, quote, being more in tune with your body, what are some other positive takeaways that your clients have, expressed in working with you, especially when it comes to with your sea moss piece?
Well, it's so important that people understand. I think, there's a lot of different things out here that are being presented to us that people say can help us and are really, really incredible. But even with the sea moss gel, I think one of the things that my clients appreciates most about my product is that I am very committed to providing the very best product that is available, period. all natural. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Some sea moss, there is actually fake sea moss out there. Okay, believe it or not, there's fake sea moss out there. I did enough studying and homework in search of a manufacturer. And when I found this manufacturer, I knew that this was the person that I wanted to make my sea moss gel. People make it themselves. A lot of people make it in their own kitchens, and they have different processes that are being used. The process that we use, which is appreciated mostly, I think this is one of the biggest appreciations that my clients have, is that it's all natural. She is my person that makes it for me is from St. Lucia, down in the Caribbean. Her family is still there. They actually harvest the raw, wild-crafted sea moss directly from the mineral-rich waters of the Caribbean. When they get it out of the sea, they just let it dry in the sun. And that's all. Then they send it to her. When she gets it, she simply rinses it in alkaline water. And the very first rinse that she does, she includes some lime juice to help kill the fishy taste and the fishy smell. And as you all know, lime is alkaline as well. Our bodies need to be more alkaline than acidic. So she uses only alkaline water. Then she will rinse the sea moss 2 or 3 more times throughout the evening in only alkaline water. Then it will soak overnight in alkaline water. Then the very next morning, it is processed into a gel with only alkaline water. There's no boiling. We don't boil the sea moss. I think when you boil anything, you're going to be boiling away some nutrients. So we don't boil. We don't use any bleach additive. There's some people that I've heard about that will use some kind of a bleach solution to try to kill the fishy smell and taste. I don't want anything in my body that's been associated with bleach, no matter what Donald Trump said. Anyway, I don't want to use any bleach solutions, and no salt is added. So you're getting wild-crafted, 100% organic sea moss gel for your body that's only made with alkaline water. And people really appreciate the fact that I go to such lengths to make sure that we're just giving them the purest product possible.
And Rick, I'm so glad you walked through that, because like you said, like you kind of alluded to, yes, this is a time for creativity, but there's always a few. We're just going to leave it at that. There's always a few, but I'm so glad you walked through step by step in regards to, again, this ties back in to your overall professionalism with things that you do. You
Absolutely.
walked through in regards to, if your name's going to be attached to something, you're trying to do it right, because you're trying to do right by the people that you are working with.
Absolutely.
And in walking through in depth, and like you said before, I'm glad you stressed that in regards to, you know, like you said, even that simple piece of your body being more on the alkaline end than the acid end. That
Yes.
in and of itself might have been something that people were not aware of. So I'm so glad you ended up sharing, sharing the steps, sharing the attention to detail, sharing the benefits and things along those lines. Here's a question. When I think about everything that you're doing, you're expanding on the CMOS piece, you're being creative within arts and entertainment. And I know it's hard because we don't know exactly when this now normal is going to pivot into something hopefully a lot calmer. But where do you see yourself going?
Well, I see the CMOS gel business being one of the greatest contributors to the health of the masses around the globe. This doesn't need to be a secret. It needs to become, I believe, a new normal. So I am working diligently in building this business. And personally, I will tell people, I don't see myself going another day for the rest of my life without taking my CMOS gel. I'm just not going to do it. The benefits have been so incredible for me, and I brought my jar from the refrigerator just so I could kind of take mine on the air, because people are, well, how does it come? Well, it comes in a 16-ounce jar. There is a plastic seal that we put around here so that it has not been tampered with, okay, from the time we sealed it up. So once we take that plastic piece off and get into it, it's just, this color is called cotton candy. Okay. It does not taste like cotton candy. It's actually tasteless and odorless. And I take 2 big tablespoonfuls like this a day, and it's kind of like eating Jell-O, you know?
Wow. So
Yummy.
like I said, just something that simple and straightforward. And again, I'm glad you walked through that with us because, again, you're showing the lengths for which to maintain the integrity of your product and just the, you know, balance and integrity of your service. So that is truly, like I said, an eye opener. And this is, like they say, a teachable moment. So this is great.
Exactly. Now, let me also say this, because some people have problems with certain kinds of consistencies in their mouth. You know, some people can't eat oysters. They would never eat oysters. Some people can't eat okra because it's slimy. You know, some people can't eat Jell-O. Some people can't eat pudding. And I understand that. But the great thing about the sea moss gel, and I want to show you this one because it's got the label on it. But the great thing about the sea moss gel is that you can use this in your coffee in the morning. You can add it to your coffee. It's odorless and tasteless. So you can add it to your coffee. You can add it to your tea. You can add it to your smoothies. You can spread it on a salad. You can spread it on a sandwich even, because it's odorless and tasteless. And some people just don't have the ability to get past that mental block of, you know, putting this in your mouth and swallowing it. And I understand everybody's not like me. I get that. So there are many variations of ways that you can get it into your body. But I'm telling you, folks, you need to start getting it into your body. 2 tablespoons a day. And I believe it'll change your life like it changed mine.
Well, I tell you what, and it's great that you shared that, because some people, you know, when they saw the live demo, it's like, I ain't putting that in there. But I'm glad that you shared that there's creative ways to go ahead and incorporate that as part of your routine. And like you said, because of that, then you know the potential for redirecting, you know, in regards to your diet and your fitness and other things. So in a lot of respects, what you're talking about with people pivoting in regards to, let's say, your larger self-care, yes, now you can basically duplicate that in the other aspects, you know, like we mentioned before. So that is so key and so timely and so important that you are sharing this. So as we get ready to wind down your time, I want you again to remind our viewers the best ways to stay connected with you, the best ways to stay engaged, and again with that teachable piece on the sea moss, again reminding people how people, you know, can connect and interface with you.
Absolutely. And before I give that information, I do also want to say this. Number one, I am not a doctor. If you are on lots of medications, you may want to just check with your doctor before you start taking sea moss gel. Is it great for you? Absolutely. But I have one customer, man, he was on several different medications, like 6 different medications. And his daily routine would be to take all of those medications in the morning. So then he added the sea moss gel to that routine as well. So he was taking all of these pharmaceuticals and then the sea moss gel all together. And he kind of felt a little strange later on that day. He felt better, you know, by the afternoon. But, you know, I just think you don't want to be mixing pharmaceuticals with this all natural stuff. And if you have any ideas about whether or not it's safe for you, always check with your doctor. And I always tell people, do your own research. Look up the benefits of sea moss gel. Google it. Now, the best way to get in touch with me is via Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram is the Rick Joyner Experience. My Facebook page is the Rick Joyner Experience as well. My personal page on Facebook is Rick Joyner. And I have no problem giving people my cell phone number, okay? If you really want to reach me quick, just shoot me a text. I put my phone number right on the label, okay? That's my cell number. That really, it comes straight here. And you can always reach out to me at 770-362 5203. Again, my cell number, 770-362-5203. I can do that because I'm not running from anybody. I'm not hiding from anybody. I don't owe nobody any money. And if you get on my nerves, I know how to block you. So, there you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rick, it has been, as usual, an engaging time, an informative time. I really appreciate you taking and making the time to be on the show. Best wishes and continued success with this as well as your future endeavors. So thank you once again.
Andrew, man, thank you for always being a friend and a brother since we met probably 13 years ago through Real Men Cook. And I'm so glad to be able to call you friend and brother. And thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you what, it goes both ways. Turnabout is fair play. So thank you so much. And what we're going to do, we're going to take our last commercial break, and we come back, we're going to wind things down and close out the show. So enjoy this commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a couple of moments. This is the author, Andrew Snorton, the host of the Conversation Corner, airing every second and fourth Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Status Network, the live TV channel. We're so excited to have the Ear Candy Experience as our official music sponsor. So make sure to check out the show and make sure to check them out. And remember, let's have a conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the Conversation Corner with your host, the author, Andrew Snorton. And hopefully you have enjoyed both of our guests. This is pretty much what we do every second and fourth Wednesday. So as we get ready to do this closeout time, there's just a couple of real quick just reminders and some seed planting that we want to do. So we're going to go ahead, and our producer is going to go ahead and throw the first of our items out on here to close out. And first, as you see right here, that is the insignia for Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. This is one of our Divine Nine organizations that was established, actually tomorrow is their Founders Day, November 12th, 1922 at the campus of Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. So we want to just give shouts and acknowledgements to the members of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. The next fraternal organization we'd like to acknowledge is, as you see right there, that is for the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Because our next show is going to be after their Founders Day, we want to give an acknowledgement November 17th, 1911 on the campus of Howard University, Washington, D.C., as they are getting ready to celebrate, and make sure I'm counting my years right, if it was November 17th, 1911, then basically 109 years. So thank you so much for your service. Friendship is essential to the soul. The next acknowledgement that we want to make sure to give, and it was one that we spoke of earlier, the election, ladies and gentlemen, presidential election is over, but the work is still remaining. So we want to give acknowledgments to our incoming president-elect Joe Biden, and we also want to give acknowledgments to our incoming Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Again, as you heard a little bit earlier, we're really excited with Vice President Harris as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as she was initiated at the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. And as some people know, Howard University is the birthplace for a number of our Greek letter organizations. So we're real excited about that. And I'm trying to see, for our producer, if there's one more that you're able to find, if you can check that out, because there's one other acknowledgement that I wanted to make sure to give while we were on air. That might be in the, probably in the, not in that particular inbox, but probably in the chat. if we can get to that. And I wanted to take a time to briefly make note. And we know that during this time of year, well, any time of year, we know that there are people that are going through challenges, going through transition. And I would be remiss if I didn't take time to acknowledge a fellow alumnus of Wake Forest University, as well as just someone who was just a key figure and key player in so many different areas in the fields of medicine and athletics. So let's see if we can get that up right quick. And we do. We have to give acknowledgments to Dr. Larry Hopkins. Now, a little bit of his backstory: an alumnus of Wake Forest University, played football, but his impact was bigger than just football. As a doctor at formerly the Bowman Gray School of Medicine, which is now the Wake Forest University School of Medicine, his work in training a number of physicians and beyond is immeasurable. And ironically, one of his medical claims to fame is that he was actually the delivering physician for a young man that you might have heard of, the NBA's very own Chris Paul. But beyond that, the Hopkins family, for anyone that is part of the Wake Forest community, as well as the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County community, his impact professionally, community-wise, being a mentor, and things along those lines are so immeasurable. He transitioned on November the 9th, so we want to extend our prayers and condolences to the Hopkins family and to all those who hold him near and dear. So on that note, we want to say to everybody out there to remain encouraged, remain motivated, remain excited about what's on the horizon. Our next broadcast will take place 2 weeks from now on November 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I thank you for taking time to tune in and support the show, as tonight marks the start of year 3. I know I used to not have as much salt and pepper, so hopefully I'm aging as gracefully as some of these other folks. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to share the show. Make sure to support all of our guests, past, present, and future. Take good care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.